So let's talk about what happened today while I was out and about thrift storing, looking for games. First up on the list is Goodwill. It's right across the street from where I work and right down the street from my bank, which is perfect. So I stop in there, get startled by my brother, Adam. We're chit chatting, and I notice that there's a guy putting out a couple stacks of games. I'm thinking, sweet, get there right when the product hits the shelf. And right away, I see a copy of Need for Speed Carbon on the Xbox 360, which is probably in my top 3 favorite versions of Need for Speed. I liked it on PS2, I liked playing it on 360, I'd like to own it on Xbox 360. I look at the price tag and it says $20. I'm like, what? Why? And then I see a copy of Spyro the Eternal Night on Nintendo Wii. No manual. The white case is very dirty. He has it marked at 10. And I'm looking through the rest of these games, and their prices are just all over the place. I can't remember many of the other ones that were in there. I think I saw like a copy of Transformers the movie for the 360. I didn't even bother to look at that, and I just passed on it. I ended up getting a nice little standing tower lamp for my living room. Got that for about $8-9. And as I'm on my way out, my brother tells me, "Oh, he got his prices from GameStop.com." I said, "Wait a minute. A Goodwill employee got his prices for the video games off of GameStop.com." He goes, "Yeah," and I'm like, "That's like the top. That's like the tippy top almost. That's borderline." Like top of the mark for eBay. He goes, "Yeah, I know." And I'm checking out and joking with the guy at the cash register, who's ironically also named Eric. Really nice guy. And I kind of say to him in passing, I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know why your guy in the back is pricing your video games based on GameStop.com, but it might be in his best interest to, probably look to someplace else." He's like, yeah. He really didn't want to acknowledge it. I don't really get it with Goodwill. I really don't. Especially right now with their pricing on these things are very up and down. Like, I've gone in there and I found some really good stuff for like $2-3 each, and I have no problem paying $3-4 for a PS2 game or an Xbox game, but it needs to be a decent game. But to walk into a place that's basically considered to be a Thrifty shopper and a Salvation Army, just in that grouping of stores where you can buy stuff cheap, and now that they're basically going on a retail website who specializes in video games and getting their prices off that really makes me worried. So that wasn't necessarily a good start. So moving on. Go to Five Below to see what they have there. They had some cool stuff, some neat posters. Didn't really get anything there. Ended up going into Mattydale, stopped over at the Thrifty shopper. I don't believe I got anything there. They had an original Xbox system with no controllers, and I think it only had one cord for $24.99, which I passed on. There was a Wii in the box, which I didn't really look up because I don't need another Wii. They've taken all of their games and put them up front, which is great for convenience, but terrible for collectors because now everyone... that was one of the things I really liked about this one Thrifty store, was that it really required people to look. Like, you really, really had to look to find this stuff, which is great because I found some good stuff there before. Now it's just all sports games for PS2, and I don't feel like paying $5 a piece for PS2 sports games. So go over to Salvation Army, which is right down the street. Pick up a couple of games and a board game. Spent $7. Did pretty good. So I'm like, all right, cool. Not a bad day. Not a bad day at all. I ended up meeting someone for a deal. We had gone back and forth for over a week, and then finally they were like, let's do this. Let's pull the trigger on it. And I say, fine. I ended up selling some of the games I had in my 50 for 50 video of, I believe it's episode 32 of Eric Scott Games. But anyway, they bought some games. I made a little change, so I figured maybe check out a pawn shop. Go about a half mile down the street, there's this little pawn shop I've never been into in an area that I'm not normally familiar with. Go inside, sweltering hot. And to preface, today was like around the low 90s. And going inside, it kind of felt like it was worse. But there was a good game selection. There was a lot of really good PS3 games. And I asked the guy behind the counter, and I'm being nice, overly nice and cordial. I never go into a business that I'm not too familiar with an attitude, because especially with a pawn shop, I figure you go in with a smile, you treat them with respect. You never know, you might end up saving $1 or $2, and if not, the best thing, you possibly made a friend, and they can hook you up for later deals. I asked the guy behind the counter if he has any set prices on PS3 games. Now, I've been to pawn shops and flea markets, and normally at flea markets, pawn shops who set up there, they have set prices for most of these games. Sometimes they'll have like, PS3 games are like $10 each. This guy had them all laid out, and I pointed at two of them. They were Resonance of Fate on the PS3 and Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 also on PS3. I asked him how much he wanted on those. He said he didn't know. He would have to look. And I'm like, what do you mean by look? He goes, I got to check eBay. And I said, okay. Right there, I got a little worried. Now, he comes back and says, the best I can do is $15 a piece on these. I had checked the video game price charting app on my cell phone, which is very handy. That's how I usually determine whether or not I'm going to buy games outside of GameStop or, I don't know, Walmart, basically, if I'm out at thrift stores. That's how I determine whether or not I buy it. I want to see how much it is, and I want to see whether or not it's worth the buy. I checked Resonance of Fate. The average price on that was around $11, $12, and the average price for Gundam 3 was about, I believe, $16, somewhere around that. He comes back and says the best he can do is $15 a piece, and I said I'm sorry. He didn't say that's the best he could do. He just said that's what it is. I checked eBay. Okay. And I kind of just ignore it, and I go about that. But then I see a copy of WrestleMania Anthology 4, which is WrestleMania 16 all the way up through 20 on 5 discs. And he's like, I want 15 for that. And he's like, if you get all 3, I'll do all 3 for 40. And I was not doing that for $40. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I mean, you're a pawn shop. Shouldn't you be buy cheap, sell for a profit? I'm like, dude, you're asking for top value on 2 games which are not worth that much. Maybe Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3. Like, I've seen that at GameStop for around $16, $17. But that's an established store that sells video games. Dude, you're a pawn shop that you had to use eBay as a pricing guide. And to be honest, like, he was very reluctant to even want to have to deal with me. Maybe it was because of the heat. I don't know. And I said, so 15 a piece is the best you can do? He goes, yes. I'm like, you won't come down on those at all? He goes, oh no, like, they're rare, they're going up in price. And I gave him this look. I'm like, are you seriously telling me right now that these are both rare? Dynasty Warriors Gundam 3 is an obscure, uncommon game. Sure, you don't see it, but it's not rare. Resonance of Fate is not is not a rare game. I have never seen that game priced over $15 anywhere. Every convention I've ever been to, someone always prices it at $15, and they normally have no problem letting it go for less than that. So clearly this guy just wanted to price it as high as he can, and he's waiting for some sucker to believe it. And unfortunately for him, I know what I'm doing. If he would have said $10 a piece, I probably would have jumped on it, and I would have said, you know what, fine, I'll do $20 I'll do $20 for both of those, no problem. Because in my eyes, I would have done $10 a piece for those. But $15 a piece and zero willingness to negotiate, no. But that was pretty much my day in a nutshell. I just got a few games, a board game, and that DVD box set. Other than that, everything else was kind of a bust. But it was a really gorgeous day out today, and I'm pretty sure all the other collectors and resellers were out and getting all kinds of stuff beforehand. So we'll just have to wait and see. And thank you guys so much for watching. And let me know in the comments below what was one of your worst days while out collecting and buying stuff. And until next time, I'll see you later.